Good morning. My name is Doug Thies. I'm the founder of IT Leaders Indy, Louisville, Northeast Indiana, Denver, and now Phoenix. We started Phoenix last week. It was 112 degrees for 3 days straight in Phoenix. So that was a little different, but I survived it, and I'm back here and glad to be here. This is the third year we've been doing Louisville. So we just started our third year. It's hard to believe it's been that long, but with the help of Centric Consulting and my company, Expedient, we've been able to deliver this meeting now for starting on our third year, so I'm super excited about it. Just to remind you, this meeting is for staff IT leadership. So if you're a director or a manager, or if you're a VP or a CIO, that's really who this meeting is about. Anyone who has direct reports, who's in a leadership position in the technology space, that's who we're focused on. I allow a couple of other people to attend. Tech Systems is here because they often know about opportunities for employment for people who are looking, and I've had a couple of other recruiters and staff aug people in, but primarily we're here to work on leadership skills and focus on how to treat your people well and how to be a better leader. So that's what we do. The meeting is focused on breakfast and networking skills. And I know, we're so natural at that, the IT people. Right? That means you stare at other people's shoes. That's the old joke, isn't it? If you're an extrovert. And then, of course, the two talks about leadership, two 30-minute talks. And Glenn has warned me that his talk might be as long as 37 minutes. So we'll take that into consideration. We have 15 minutes at the end. We have for a little bit of slack space. If you like what you see here, it's important that you share it on your social media. If you're active on social media, take a few pictures and send them to me if you would, so we can publish those and let people know what's going on here. IT Leaders Lou is the hashtag that we use, and that's my mobile number there. You can text those pictures of our speakers and of the crowd. I think it's really useful to let people know what to expect here. How many are here for the first time? Great, welcome. Super cool that you're here. I'm glad you could make it, and I think you'll find it valuable. Tell your friends. I always talk about the church and the soccer field. You know, we know our IT friends from previous employment or from our other spheres of influence in our lives. Let them know that this event is going on, because I think a lot of people can benefit from it. If you want to stay informed, itleaders.org is the best place to do that. itleaders.org/Louisville is where we update for this event. And there's also a LinkedIn company page that I use whenever I speak about this event on LinkedIn. So if you follow that, you'll often see updated notices about who's speaking and other events that we have going on. We also have a LinkedIn private group called IT Leaders Community. And the logo is a little bit different for that. It's a red logo from the IT Leaders events. That is really for you to communicate with each other. So we keep all the salespeople out except for me, even though I'm not really a salesperson. But that is really for you to do some communication with each other about vendors or about problems or sharing leadership articles. That's what that's focused on. There are some events going on, and I want you to have the opportunity to know about other events. We really love to cross-promote events here because we're hoping they'll cross-promote us as well. And I think it's good for you all to know where other groups are meeting. Mickey, do you want to talk a little bit about what's going on Friday?
Yeah. So we've got the Louisville Metro InfoSec Conference. It's our 17th year we've been doing the conference. And it's our first one back since the pandemic. So we are also almost sold out. I actually just bumped up the tickets because we had a little wiggle room. I think we have like 8 tickets left. So anyone that wants to go, right? That's
Buy now.
There is a, I believe that is the link that has the free codes. If it's not, I will make sure he gets the code to get a free ticket for anybody that is here. Just trying to increase, education and make it available to everybody. For some of you, it might be a little last minute since it's this Friday. But yeah, we've got, I think, 18 talks, 2 of which are keynotes, free lunch, and lots of vendors and sponsors, chances to win prizes, and all the things. So.
Sounds really fun. I'll be there representing IT leaders. They were kind enough to give We Not-for-Profits some space, so we're going to be talking to some people, maybe get some new faces here on the next event. I'm excited about that. Louisville Microsoft User Group. Leah?
Yeah, hi guys, I'm Leah Weissman, if you haven't met me before. I run the Louisville Microsoft Users Group, and we meet monthly, typically. The end of the year is a little different, but our meeting this month is going to be on October 18th, and we are going to talk about incident response, because it is Cybersecurity Awareness Month. So we're going to do a little talk on the framework for incident response, and then we're going to play a game called Backdoors and Breaches. So has anyone heard of that game before? Okay, cool, awesome. Yes. So basically it's formatted sort of like Dungeons and Dragons, but it's about using security tools to address a threat. So Black Hills Security created this game. It's really fun. So we have limited registration for this event because of the venue we're in. We're going to be at Mirazon. It's a little bit smaller. So if you or people who work for you would benefit from this, sign up now. So come see me if you want me to forward you the invite. But we will also be meeting again December 6th for our holiday party. So stay tuned. Should be fun.
Super fun.
Yeah.
Louisville Data Technology Group. One of the Centric folks runs that, right? That's Josh who runs that?
Yes, Josh.
Yeah, there's the link for that. I don't have any information about when their next events are, but if you're a data person, that's probably a good group for you to meet up with. And then Rocket Women, an amazing group that's very dynamic, and men are invited too. It's not just for ladies, so Shannon does an amazing job with that group. That's their link.
They announced their conference, I think, is going to be in November.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, maybe that was for 2025, but I didn't read. They moved their conference date.
Okay.
So just FYI.
Okay.
Planning on March. I think it's in November next year.
Check that out. One of my coworkers has gone to a couple of those conferences and says they're fabulous. So super cool. Any other groups that we should talk about or that you should know about? Go ahead.
Derby DevOps is tomorrow night at Millwood Arts Center from 6 to 7:30. Josh Higginbotham will be speaking about building a DevOps organization.
So Derby, I cannot say that. Derby DevOps is focused around developers and the DevOps community, right? Yeah, and Josh is on that. So great, thank you. I need to get that in the slides.
Yes. Millwood Arts Center.
And dog friendly, I hear.
And dog friendly. And really cool venue, especially
Yeah.
in this weather. It's lovely.
Super cool venue. Dog-friendly user group.
Yeah.
I'm all about that.
Same.
Really cool. We normally take videos of these. I'm surprised my videographer is not here right now. I am recording audio, so if you want to go back and refer to other talks with other leaders, you can go to Expedient's YouTube channel with this link and go find previous events. I've got a couple coming up for the Phoenix event. The CIO of the Phoenix Suns spoke last week, and he was really engaging. And also the head of sports training for Grand Canyon University spoke, and he was really good too on mindset, so super good. And we also take these videos and strip the audio out of them and have created a podcast called IT Leaders. So the 37-minute talks that come out of these meetings also are turned into podcasts. IT Leaders is the name of that podcast. That link will take you to a list of podcast aggregators, and you can subscribe from there. All right, this is the part where you come in. It's looking for a position or you have an open position. One of my IT Leaders Indie leaders has recently taken a job as the director at NTN Drive Shaft in Columbus, Indiana, which is about halfway between Indy and Louisville. And Bill Runyon is his name, and he has two open positions, J.D. Edwards developer and an IT senior business analyst, and that role will revolve around J.D. Edwards to a great degree. NTN Drive Shaft is a manufacturer. They have multiple business units across America. They're a Japanese firm, and they are getting ready to do an ERP change. So brain surgery while you're walking if you're looking for a challenge. I have the job descriptions for both of these. So if you're interested, hit me after the meeting or reach out to me via email, and I can send these to you, or you can go check their site. I'm not positive that they're up quite yet. He's only been there like 3 weeks, and he's super excited about the work. He's really a capable leader. I would highly encourage you to consider this if you're looking. Okay, so who has a position to be filled in their organization who's here today? Any open positions that we should hear about? Sarah?
How much time do you have?
We have 4.
4.
4. We're growing. I work for Heaven Hill Brands, so we make Elijah Craig and Evan Williams and all the good stuff.
Thank you.
That's right. You're welcome. You're welcome, all of you. So we have 4 positions. So one will go top down. We have the Director of Technology Services. That person will report to our CIO and be a peer to me. That person is going to have the infrastructure and operations team, the security team, and the service desk underneath them. Under that role is going to be a security architect role, so that is also open. And then as a peer of that role is the service desk. So our service desk manager just got engaged and is in love and is leaving.
Oh, how dare she?
Yeah, I know. I'm really happy for her, really not so much for us.
Yeah.
So that's 3. And then the 4th one is on my team. It's an enterprise analyst role. And we have a number of kind of, my boss calls them cats and dogs, homegrown applications, as well as one SaaS application that needs an administrator. And I'd love to have somebody who is like, yeah, never seen that before. Let me figure it out. Like, let's try it. Let's learn together. So that's it.
Cats and dogs.
Yes.
I'm taking that. That's good. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Leah.
Hi, I'm Leah. Nice to meet you. I'm also hiring for a couple positions. So if you have people that are maybe graduating college looking to maybe get into the IT industry, we're hiring a couple inside sales reps. For us, that's mostly getting quotes from our vendors, making sure they're right, helping us deliver great solutions to potential and existing clients. So really looking for potentially people who are starting their careers, or they're looking for something like that. Detail orientation, very important. That's really, you know somebody?
I've got somebody.
All right, I'm going to talk to you. But yeah, come see me if you know somebody that may.
I'll
You
know
do?
somebody.
Okay.
Wow.
All right, I'll talk to you.
Tremendous.
Thank you.
Excellent. That's a really good role for people to get if they're looking to get into IT. That is one of the best things they can do to get familiar with what's going on. So I would highly encourage you. The fact that it's selling actually helps people understand how IT gets helped and how service provider organizations work too. So big fan of that role as a starting point. Anyone else? Matt?
I'm Matt Fouché, El Toro. We're always looking for Kubernetes-oriented. We're looking for a principal architect, several of them. So we'd love to have somebody in the local market if they're available. If the talent's here, we'd love to talk to you. Also, just simply DevOps engineers in general. So we have mostly in the senior ranks. But thanks.
DevOps and Kubernetes at El Toro. Anyone else? Okay, how about those who are looking for their next position? Raise your hand. Go ahead. Introduce yourself and make it brief.
Kyle Way. I was here the last time. I'm still looking. So Director of Information Security, Director of IT-ish things. It's the market's rough. I'll take a good opportunity and work from there. So
Okay.
A lot of time in Humana, Heaven Hill Brands. Yes, sir.
I'm Celia.
Okay. I think I missed talking to you last time.
You did.
So my apologies.
Did you hear that?
Okay, we're gonna write the ship.
Solve this problem. Good. That's good. Are you going Friday?
Yes.
Good.
Yeah.
Fabulous.
I'm volunteering actually,
Oh, good.
since I have some free time.
Yeah. Anyone else? Anyone else who cares to admit that they're looking for their next role? All right. Thank you. I love that part. If you like what you see here, please connect with me on LinkedIn if you haven't already. That way we can spread the word through your network when I post about IT leaders, or post about IT leaders yourself if you find this is valuable. Share the videos and the presentations with your friends if you like what you see. And schedule some time with me. I'll be reaching out to some of you after this meeting to just get some feedback on the meeting or talk to you if you know about other folks who might be interested in coming or possible future speakers. Always in the market for new speakers, and I'm starting to plan out 2025 as well. So 2 companies have really been fundamental in making sure that this event came to Louisville and stays in Louisville. Centric Consulting is the first one. You've been incredible in getting the word out like I could have never done being from North Louisville in Indianapolis. Do you want to talk, Chris, about what it is that you do as a company?
I'm going to defer to Danielle this
I
morning.
gave Chris the morning off today.
Okay, all right, Danielle.
Good morning, Danielle Kunefeld, Centric Consulting. We are your local business and technology consulting firm. And you say local, what? That doesn't make sense. We do pride ourselves on having local consultants or close to local everywhere that we go. We're all over the U.S. and offshore as well. We are happy to be partnering with Expedient and with Doug here to help get the word out on IT leaders and really build our community in Louisville. We have a small team here, a few more people in Cincinnati, but we're really looking to grow our obviously our audience, our business, but really the IT and general technology groups here in Louisville. So happy to be here, happy to partner with you. Thank you.
This is the only market that we partner with someone to help, and that's because Centric has the same ethos that we have, that good leadership is really one of the best IT strategies that there ever was. So thank you very much. I really appreciate what you've done. And then my company, Expedient, we have data centers in 15 data centers in 10 cities. Our closest one here is Indy. We have been looking for a Louisville data center. It's a little less interesting with interest rates being so high right now, but we continue to grow over time. We're just opening our 3rd data center in Columbus, Ohio. We are one of the world's largest VMware clouds as well. We run about 130,000 VMs for clients of different shapes and sizes. And we're a Nutanix cloud too. I was at the Broadcom, the VMware Explorer event a few weeks ago, and listening to people who needed therapy about how Broadcom has treated them. And we're also, the Nutanix cloud was actually one of the hottest topics that we had there at a Broadcom conference. But I just did a webinar last week with one of our coworkers. It's on that same YouTube Expedient channel, if that's of interest to you. There's a little bit more information. Both of us were out there, but I got to give Expedient credit for giving back to the community in multiple markets, as we have done for many years now with IT leaders. Now, the next event, we are not having a peer group on December 10th. So, second Tuesday of December is December 10th. From 4 to 6 p.m., we are going to do a happy hour here in town. And we thought we were going to be at one place, and they don't seem that interested in our business, so we're working out the details. Christian is working out the details to get us scheduled. This is going to be a great opportunity for you to bring people who aren't that familiar with what we've done, or people who've never been before, or people who enjoy drinking and eating food. They're welcome. Yeah, I know that list is probably a little bit longer. We will have the registration page up by the end of this week for the event, and hopefully we'll have the venue identified as well. We're going to go from 4 to 6, and it should be super fun. Now, here are the dates, the tentative dates for next year. So if you want to stop and take a picture of this so you can get this on your calendar, it'll be published shortly on itleaders.org. But we're second Tuesday, just like we've always been, on every other month starting in February. Yum Brands, we're hoping Yum Brands will host again. It's not a sure thing quite yet, so we may need to go find another venue, but I'm doing what I can to stay here because I think it's a nice central location and the facilities have been fabulous. So we really appreciate how Yum has been so open and allowing us to come. In no market do I have better facilities than I have here at Yum Brands. So those are our dates. And I've already got a couple of speakers lined up, and I'm looking for more. So if you know of good IT leader speakers or good speakers on a leadership topic, that would be great. In February, I've got Shalisa Montrose speaking. I think she was a Yum Brands employee. She is a leadership coach, and I've got Olivia Fitchett, who was at last month or 2 months ago's meeting. She'll be speaking in April. So looking for more speakers as time goes on here. All right, we're ready for today's speaker. Sue Fries is going to kick us off with communication, and Glenn Keller is going to talk to us about how technology is murdering our productivity. So I look forward to both of these talks. Sue, let me get the AV set up here.
Thank you. So good morning. Thank you for spending a few minutes of your very busy week thinking about how you can be better communicators. I started out thinking of really good subjects, and I wanted to put messaging is hard. But usually if you lead off with something is hard, people don't want to hear about it too much because it's hard and it's early in the morning. But basically, there's a lot of things that we do every day that are impacted by how we communicate. And sometimes they're fun things. So imagine you have your dear, sweet grandmama coming to town. You're so excited. You've told everyone about it. You just can hardly wait. And then at some point, you send this note to your team. Let's all gather around. I'm hungry. Let's eat grandma. And you're like, this is so awesome. And as you're looking around the table and everyone's having a great time, you notice that there's a couple of chairs missing. And you're like, well, where are those people? And you find they're doing research. And you're like, where on earth did you come up with this idea? Just because I left out a comma? But the thing is, there are people all the time who are doing these random things that you're like, where did you come up with that idea? And a lot of the time, I think you can just center on what do they know? How do they know that they know that? How do you know that they know that? And really just get into better communication. At the end of the day, it is cheaper, and I'm not going to say it's cheap, but it is cheaper to communicate effectively. Because otherwise, think about you didn't spend time with grandmama. You missed all the great conversations that were going on. And in the meantime, you had to tell the people who were working so hard on their great research they were so excited for, no, put the kitchen utensils away. Put down the Donner Party cookbook, which is an actual thing I found out. I don't think it actually has recipes. I stopped when I saw that. And then there's those people who were trying to do that. Well, they disappointed you. They upset you. Now you have morale problems on top of everything. That is expensive. And it's always more expensive to fix it after the fact. So there are some things that you cannot just work around. They are always there. There are some obstacles that you're just going to have to deal with. And the first one is that you are scary. Everyone has said, no, I'm really awesome. What do you mean people can't talk to me? We all think this about ourselves. But at the end of the day, you have the ability to fire anyone at any time. Now, practically speaking, we know our HR friends would say that's not really true. But anyone on your team doesn't believe that. You have a bad day, they're gone. And so every time you do anything, it is through the lens of, what if they hate me? What if this is the end of everything? With that in mind, every time you say anything to your team, they're going to think about it. They're going to think it over and over. They're going to talk to each other about it. They're going to analyze what they think you said. And the worst of all is they're going to paraphrase it, and sometimes incredibly poorly. They will start saying what you said, and we've all played the telephone game when we were kids, and you hear how things get garbled and misconstrued, and before too long, what started out as, I like your shirt, becomes I'm going to Florida. And you're, again, no idea how that happened, but this is what happens. You have these moments where you don't even always realize that you're in a funny spot for yourself and how that translates to the rest of the team, or something that you think makes all the sense in the world, think about our missing comma, that people just gravitate towards, they grasp on. It can be so minor, but it really resonates. So never forget, above all, your team does see you as scary, and that will always be the default lens they're going to see you through. The next one, silence. I don't think we often deploy our silence well. Think about a meeting you were in. I had one where I had the fortunate experience to have a very small meeting with my grand boss. Me and 2 other people. I was so excited. While we were in that meeting, he was on his phone on Amazon shopping for something for his wife. And I'm trying to give him really good information, and he would nod and smile every so often. But in the end, he wasn't engaged with me, and I felt it in volumes. Now, this was pre-pandemic, so all we had was in person. Now think about when you're on camera, or maybe you choose to not be on camera. What are those moments that you're really leaning into? And again, everything you do is going to be taken, analyzed. Well, this was the part they didn't say anything. I saw them look away when, and when all you have is shoulders and above, it gets worse because people don't even know what else is happening around. So think about silence as part of the conversation and how you can deploy that, because you may not even realize those moments that you're deploying it incredibly poorly. The last thing that is just table stakes in conversation, paying attention is really hard. The average attention span, 8 seconds. If you really want to transfer information, 20 minutes. So that means if you have something big, you have an important meeting, you can change the topic every 20 minutes. It can be a longer meeting, but assume that they only have 20 minutes of give a darn before they just checked out and they're moving on to something else. Every 8 seconds, if you can arrange it to give a different sort of context, you can do something that's kind of interesting to grab their attention. It can be your slides, it can be your tone of voice, it can be giving a story, but do something that's kind of interesting every few seconds so that you can re-trigger that 8 seconds, I'm here with you, but it's not going to last more than 20 minutes. Now, I linked to a little thing here, and I'll tell you, the guy, he has this video where he's trying to emphasize this point. And he does it by every 8 seconds, the camera, it's here, and it's here, and it's zooming out, and zooming in. And he's in this really bare bones room. It is so weird. It's really disturbing. It drives the point home, but I would not want to watch that. I ended up not even finishing the video. I couldn't do it. But it does speak to, I was aware how often those things happen, and those things do grab your attention. Case in point, I know at some point every single person in this room has checked out about something, and that's okay. It's really normal. Assume your team is doing the same thing all the time. It's really normal. It's not you. It's not personal. It's just how they are. So there's some other snags, because, that all wasn't enough. You can't say anything right, you can't not say anything right, and they don't care anyhow. Great! So other things that get in the way. Jargon. We all have those words where, I need to officify my current, whatever. That may mean something very important to you, but if you're not speaking the language of the people on the other end, you might as well not say it. Use simple terms. Be willing to repeat those words. Acronyms are just as bad. So the term EPIC as a system, I've worked in healthcare, I've worked in law enforcement, they are 2 drastically different systems. Every acronym you have can be probably used a lot of different ways. So just avoid them. Or if you say them, follow up with the words that go with it, just to get everybody's heads where they're at. We also have different personal preferences. Think about, there are some people who learn best by digesting the written word. There are some people who like giant paragraphs. They like bullet points. It's all over the place. Some people want to react very quickly in the moment. Some people are going to let me think on that, and I'm going to get back to you. You have all of that happening, and that's on an individual level. And at the end of the day, it's still really hard to say to the big scary person, I don't know. No matter how many times you're like, no, it's cool, you can tell me if you don't know, they're still not going to be the first one to say, I don't know. Similarly, I messed up. So fortunately, there's some stuff you can do. Now, I said at the beginning, it's not that good communication is cheaper, but it's not cheap. The first thing you have to do is build trust. My husband, when I put that up there, he was like, is that supposed to be funny? I was like, ouch! He started looking for other things. We decided we have a difference of opinion on this one. Regular conversations on a one-on-one level. Understand the people who are impacting your day-to-day the most. If you want somebody who understands what's coming down, you have to understand what they're going to hear. In that moment with Grandmama, what was it that someone was hearing that made them go to the Donner Party? What was it that they were like, no, I heard them talking about some really exotic trips they were planning on, and some of the religious whatevers behind that, and they went into a whole other space. How would you know that if you didn't talk to them? And this is an egregious example, of course, but we all know that there's that moment where you say just something and maybe you don't follow it up, or they don't have the right context, or their head's in a whole other space. Regular one-on-ones, it helps you understand where they're coming from, and it also helps you understand what their triggers will be. The second one, admit your mistakes. You want your team to be able to come to you in a moment of weakness. Be loud and proud. You know what? I said that wrong. I messed up. And it's hard for us to do it too, because who wants to look dumb? At the end of the day, we're all dumb about something at some point. Just admit it. And it will follow through to your team. To one, they will see it's okay to acknowledge these moments. It's okay to have some vulnerability. But then, because what we all want to have happen, I messed up and here's what I'm doing with it. So demonstrate that. Be part of that. Be the first one to show we are human, but we can get better. Follow through. If you tell your team you're going to do something, you're going to follow up on something, you care about something, demonstrate it. Easy peasy, right? Except how many times you've been like, no, the most important thing you can do is to show up to this meeting on Monday and you're half an hour late. It happens, and there's good reasons for it. Again, admit your mistakes. But have your team understand that when you say you're going to be there, when you say something's important, that you will back it up. Delegate. And this one is kind of funny to think about in terms of communication, but it is our actions count for a lot. How we talk to people is part of it. How we act with people is another thing. If you give someone a task, except the first time, they may get it wrong, or not to your standard, because some things are arts, some things are science. Be willing to see their art and don't compromise on the science. So you give little check-ins. You say, what is going on with this? Here's the thing I would rather see differently. And in that moment, you might be like, I totally want to rewrite this whole thing. But you know what? Then all you're ever going to do is totally rewrite the whole thing. And also you've lost trust, and you've lost the team's willingness to engage. There's so many things. But if you find the right things to coach on, and you find the right things to give them the space for, the reason that you delegated in the first place, they're going to be able to move into that space, and they will show you where their strengths are that maybe will surpass your own.
Will you repeat the line about be willing to see their art and don't what?
So there's art and the science. So
Yeah.
be willing to see their art. Don't compromise on their science.
Compromise on the science. Thank you. I love it.
Thank you. Science or silence. Wield that strategically. Again, think about all the ways that you can be part of the conversation without speaking. When you are the leader, when you are one of the heavy voices in the room, if you don't speak, people do hear that. It's really interesting when I was looking at who were some of the great leaders who are known for not speaking. And Abraham Lincoln's a big one, Calvin Coolidge, Steve Jobs, and of course the big finance guy that I can't think of right now. Warren Buffett. These people are known for showing up, being smart, but not being loud. It does matter. And the biggest problem if you speak up too quickly, so if you are the first to opine, how many competing opinions are you going to hear next? Not many. And if you do, it's probably from that guy that always says anything anyhow, and you're not even sure if you care anymore. Be willing to be the last one to give an opinion. And if there's some people who aren't speaking up, it's okay to step in that space a little bit, just to acknowledge, hey, we probably haven't heard you, but then step right back. So you can lean into the moment, lean into the silence, lean into what you're giving them an opportunity to do. And that is also, when I'm saying lean in, this is where you're showing up physically as well. This is where, you're not on your phone buying something for your wife. You're actually listening to the poor soul who cared enough to put something together for you. How do you show up in these moments? The next thing you can do, repetition. And I like this particular meme because it's not saying the exact same thing over and over and over, as we often think about. It is saying the same thing in different ways, roughly expanding on the concept, driving it home so you can use stories. So in this talk, I've given a few different stories that you can maybe resonate with. I use metaphors all the time. I talk about processes in terms of how I'm going to the grocery store. Take it completely out of context just to create the moment that they can follow what you're saying. Also be willing, like I was talking about with acronyms. You're not just using the acronym, you're using what it stands for. You're using the why it cares. One of my favorite things about Agile, there was an article I read way, way back. It was talking about cargo cult Agile. And the idea was there was two guys in the government who really, really wanted to go to Agile training. And their boss was like, nope, we've tried this. It's a bad word. We're not doing it anymore. And they kept pushing. And so finally, the guy's like, okay, you can go to training, but here's the thing. You can't use those words when you come back. And so instead of asking for a stand-up, they said, wouldn't it make sense if every day we got together just to talk about the progress we're making and where we need help? Yeah, totally makes sense. Wouldn't it be great if we were to time box roughly what we can get done so we can come up with a commitment? Yeah, that totally makes sense. So again, it's driving home the point without necessarily leaning into the jargon, leaning into those words that people may have preconceptions about. People may be thinking other things, and getting to that moment where they're connecting with it in the way you need them to. For me, the single best success indicator I can have for things that really, really matter is if I say it and my team can finish the sentence. Like in that moment where you're like, okay, you all have heard this a million times. When are annual enrollment signups due? Next Wednesday, thank you. It's an easy one, but it also shows that at that point your message has gotten through. There's a lot of different messages we have in that way. I've worked at some places where they want everybody to be able to recite the values of the company. And that's not necessarily bad, but it is leaning into what is it that matters most and creating that sense of, after a point, I will admit those places, they felt a little funny because I didn't necessarily know why reciting the values affected my day-to-day, but understanding when my benefits are going to be different, if I don't make an action, that affects me personally. So be thinking about what are those moments and prioritize your message. Everyone's heard about prioritization in terms of time. Think about it in terms of what it is you want folks to say. What is it you want them to take away from this? And just like time management, if you don't put the big rocks in first, if your key message isn't well understood, it doesn't matter about the rest of it. And I love this one because the always room for coffee with a friend. It's okay to just be a person. Like always, just think about it. But think about what it is you want them to take away from it. Then think about what are the minor details that will fill in. The sand would kind of be like, is there any surrounding things we need to be thinking about? But always make it abundantly clear, what are the key messages? What are the most important things that are coming out of what it is you have to share. And when you're dealing with the team and you've built your trust and you have a problem, because the problem is probably the hardest times to communicate, the hardest times to message, think about the you, we, me approach. So first and foremost, if you have been brought into a problem, something is painful. That means there's been a lot that's gone on behind it. There's a lot of scar tissue. The team may not have even wanted to come with you about it, or you may have had to pull them into it because of something, but still acknowledge what has been done. Create that space where we can even talk about what's going on. So acknowledge, hey, this wasn't intentional. No one was malicious. You did great in even coming here with me. Talk about we. We own the problem. So this is where it's not one person who's going to be stuck with all this. It's not them who is at fault. It's not them who's going to carry the load. It's us. We are all in this together. Help that sense. And then me. It would be better if it was I. I'll give you that, but it flows better this way. So me. What am I going to do as part of this? Maybe it's a follow-up. Maybe it's I'm going to talk to this person and kind of help them calm down. Maybe it's, you know what, I have an idea. Any of these things are possible, but be thinking about how you personally are going to be involved. So I look at it as you are awesome, we have a problem, and I will help. Whatever you're doing, be sure you're speaking their language and be specific. You can't just say great job and move on, because great job doing what? What is the effort you want them to repeat in the future? What is that thing that you're hoping you see more of? What is, like, be specific, but also don't be too jargony or too dismissive. Thank you.
Okay, good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks for being here. Thanks for having me. You're like, okay, we've got a guy with one leg and power tools. This is going to be great.
Related?
Maybe.
Sounds like the start of a good joke.
Maybe. Yeah. Okay, so 94 years ago, John Maynard Keynes said, in 100 years, we're all going to be working 15-hour work weeks. Who's doing that? Kevin Hill people, you guys doing that?
No, we are not doing that.
Okay, well, you got 6 more years, right? So, why jump the shark? But really, even with all this technology that we've deployed, I'm using the royal we here, since 1950, nearly 75 years ago, we've only shaved 4 hours off of our work week. Why is that? I mean, but even if you could, let's say you could work that 15-hour week, would you put that on LinkedIn? Would you say, hey, I am out here Tuesday at 10 a.m. and I am absolutely killing it? Hell no, you're not going to do that. Why? Because you'd be dragged all over the universe. Because we still live in this kind of puritanical society, right? And just as a reminder, Puritanism, the haunting fear that someone somewhere may be happy. And we cannot allow that. I mean, look at paid vacation, mandates by country. The US, that's like almost nothing. I mean, it kind of makes you wonder if we really want to work more. And look at this chart. If you can see the dark blue line on here, that's labor productivity since 1950. It's flat. So we've got all this technology we've deployed, right? Hardly any mandated PTO. Yet still, labor productivity isn't really going anywhere. It increases, but it's like anemic. So, I mean, most companies, yes, they start you with 2 weeks PTO. Unless you work for us, then you get 3 weeks to start. Always be recruiting, Jay-Z. That's right. Thank you. So what's going on here? Right? Now, this is not like a rant against technology, although sometimes it'll seem that way. I mean, technology is great. Look what technology has done. The green line is global poverty rate. The blue line is energy consumption. We can't really measure technology adoption, but energy consumption is a pretty good proxy. So, we've deployed all this technology. It's beautiful. How come we're sitting here? I mean, no offense to anybody from Yum Brands here. I don't know. No offense to Yum Brands or anything, but why are we here in this conference room on a beautiful day instead of here? Well, my theory is that's because we're consuming the advantage, right? We deploy technology and we immediately consume the advantage. What I mean by that is, the easy parallel is, you buy a new house because you need more room. What happens after a couple of years?
It's full.
Right? You completely fill it up with a new load of crap. So, another more serious example is car crash fatalities. Look what's going on here. Down since 1993 or so. Down, 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 down. Ooh, 2010, what's going on? It starts to flatten out. What else is going on around 2010? We start to deploy things like, we start to deploy things like all these safety devices, right? So we've got lane detection, we've got collision avoidance. Yet the rate is trending back up. What's going on? We consume the advantage, and yes, 3,000 deaths per year from distracted driving. Translation, 3,000 people are dead because people were looking at their cell phones when they were driving. That's all distracted driving is. DUIs are actually going down. Distracted driving, going up. So in technology terms, when we think about consuming the advantage, I like to talk about friction. And what do I mean by friction? Well, I'll give you a little example. Okay, here's the power tool part. This thing is 40 years old. How many of you think it's going to work? Just raise your hand, right? Yeah, most of you think it's going to work. And of course it's going to work. I mean, it's basically a brick with a motor. Like, literally nothing can happen in this thing. How about this? Is it going to work? No, of course it's not going to work. There's no battery in it. Right? How about now? Is it going to work? Yeah, you're not so sure, right? Maybe the battery's charged, maybe it's not. Battery's charged, right? So it's going to work. That's a little example of friction. What I do? There it is.
It's over here.
No, I got it. So another thing about this drill is, okay, as long as I keep the battery charged, I'm going to have a good drill. It's going to work. It's going to work for the next 10 years until what happens after 10 years? The battery doesn't take a charge anymore. So you go to Home Depot and you say, I need 2 new batteries, and guess what? They don't make that battery anymore. Why? Because batteries are better, they're smaller, they're more efficient, which means you buy 2 more batteries, right? And then also you have to buy a new tool because your tool no longer uses those. So now what happens? Well, you've got the battery, right? The old ones. What are you going to do with it? You got to get rid of it, but you can't throw it here. No, those can't go in a landfill. You got to recycle it, but not here. They can't go in curbside recycling. No, you got to take it to a specialized recycling facility where friendly experts will help you recycle that battery. So let's say that this thing is going to last 80 years, but you decide you want a battery-operated one anyway because it's cooler. What's your footprint look like over 80 years? You're going to buy 1 of these, and you're going to buy 8 of the battery-operated drills, and you're going to buy 16 batteries. Cost? Almost $3,000 versus $39.97.
Wow.
If you're not doing a lot of work, right, it seems a pretty obvious choice. But what are we going to do? No, we're going to buy the cool one, right? Because, when it works, it is a lot handier. So we've decided here that the juice is worth the squeeze. Okay, we got to go through all this stuff, but this thing's so cool, it's so easy to use, I'm willing to put up with that friction. So a little bit of the more I'm talking about here is exactly that. Is the juice worth the squeeze? And more importantly, who exactly is doing the squeezing? Okay, Space Shuttle Challenger. Everybody remember the Challenger disaster? Everybody knows the story about the O-rings, etc. So here we are, a nice, beautiful Florida day. It's warm, it's sunny, it's brilliant, perfect day for a launch. Except for one problem. Inside that red circle is a little handle that's attached to the hatch. The technicians on the pad cannot get that handle off. So what are they going to do? Now they're going to call a special team to the launch pad to try to get the handle removed. Now, if you're standing near the fully fueled space shuttle, you're not using one of these. Because if it were dark in here, you could see that this thing is throwing off sparks, right? So you have to have battery-operated tools. So the special team goes up there, they see what the problem is, they whip out their tools. Anybody want to guess what happened?
Batteries dead.
The batteries were dead. Every single tool they had 4 or 5 of them, had a dead battery. What are they going to do? So now they got to call old school maintenance guy, who's God knows how far from the pad. If you've been to Cape Canaveral, the launch pad's miles away from anything. So this guy gets in this truck, comes out to the pad, the clock is ticking because we have a launch window that's starting to close. He gets to the bottom of the launch pad. He can't go up because he doesn't have security clearance. So now this argument goes on. He finally gets to take the slow-ass elevator up to the top of the launch pad, takes a look, sees what's going on, and immediately grabs one of these and saws that handle off this $8 billion in today's dollars spacecraft. Problem solved, right? Old school maintenance guy is our hero, except for one small problem. The launch window is gone. So now they have to launch the next day. And the next day turns out to be a very cold day. And I think everybody knew what happened after that, right? So we lost several $1 billion worth of spacecraft, but even more important, we lost the lives of 7 people. Now, you can't blame the O-ring failure on a dead battery. However, if it hadn't been for the hatch bolted down too tightly, and if it hadn't been for the dead battery, this thing probably would have went off the day before and avoided all of that. So, lesson learned on dead batteries. Okay, a little more friction. David Graeber in his book, Bullshit Jobs, talks about jobs that exist in organizations that don't really move the mission of the organization forward, right? There's nobody in here that has one of those. In case you're worried, like, oh my God, he's going to talk about me. Okay. I might piss off the cybersecurity people a little bit. Sorry in advance. Shocker. Sorry in advance. But I will say I'm not a cybersecurity person, but I am responsible for it. So, anyway, while none of you may have a bullshit job, almost everybody has bullshit work that has to be done. And one of the prime examples of bullshit work, is multi-factor authentication. Why? How dare you? Why does MFA exist? It exists because we have to protect the organization from the technology that we put in. That's the only reason it's there, right? And then we tell ourselves, well, it's good. Employees are our weakest link. No, they're not. The technology is stupid, right? That's what happened. That's how come we've exposed ourselves to everybody in the world, and now we have to protect the organization. Look, I love MFA. I adore it. The reason I like MFA so much is when I go to any meeting with stakeholders and I say, hey, what can we do better as an MFA group? As an IT group. And automatically MFA comes up. Right? And it's like the pitchforks around. Can you get rid of MFA? And everybody forgets about all the other stuff that we screwed up. So for that standpoint, kudos, it's great. Another type of friction is when we move work around. So, okay, give my age away. I remember when you first started rolling out Office Productivity Suites. Somebody came up, hey, you got WordPerfect on your desk now, isn't this great? I'm like, for what? And they said, well, think about it, right? Instead of you going to Melody, Melody writes your memos for you, and Melody puts your slides together, you can do all of that yourselves. And I'm like, oh, thanks for the great gift. Right? I thought my job was to write computer programs, but if you want to take a certain part of my job so that I can write really crappy documents and put together ugly slideshows, you're the boss. You pay me. I'm all in on it. And meanwhile, right, what happened to all the melodies? Trick question. We know what happened because they were the lowest people on the totem pole. Most of them no longer had their jobs. And I remember there was a lot of people that said, we don't really want these jobs. And they were mostly women, and there were a lot of women saying this too. These jobs are beneath us. We don't need these kind of jobs. They're kind of, they're clerical, and, they're really beneath us, right? The people that weren't saying that are the Melodies. And the Melodies were valued members of the team. They knew what our objectives were. They knew what our goals were. Okay, we're going to start talking about distractions. And if we're going to talk about distractions, we have to make a stop on the information superhighway. If this is the mother of dragons, then the internet is the mother of distractions. If you were set out to invent a medium that would rewire our mental circuits as quickly and thoroughly as possible, you would probably end up with something like the internet. That comes from the shallows, what the internet is doing to our brains. $250 billion. That represents the amount of money that we spend globally in cybersecurity to protect ourselves from threats that mainly come across the internet. We protect our organizations and we protect ourselves. So can you imagine the business case a few, like 40 years ago, say, 30 years ago, when we first started connected to the internet, we first started doing SaaS applications, we started opening our organizations to the world. Imagine this business case between a board of directors. Hey, we're gonna do all this cool stuff. It's gonna be great, right? You'll be able to have these SaaS applications, communicate with people in Bangladesh, wherever you need to. Oh, by the way, we're gonna need $2.5 trillion over the next 10 years to protect ourselves because there's gonna be crooks out there trying to kill us. How do you think that would have went? Right? But, you know, we didn't do that. We didn't plan on it. And that's okay. We are where we are. And where we are is, hey, we could get a roll of toilet paper overnight, right? Isn't that great? Now, nobody is saying the internet's not important. It's not going anywhere. It's delivered a lot of great benefits. I mean, I'm a senior citizen, and I look at the internet, and I think, hey, my life is going to be a lot easier than, you know, the life of my parents and my grandparents because of all the technology we've delivered, and a lot of it's internet-enabled. But, you know, we got to think about the cost and think about the friction. Is the internet worth the squeeze? And I think probably we're going to say it is. But, you know, there's some stuff that's still pending because we don't exactly know what the friction is, and we don't exactly know what it's doing to our brains. The internet can produce both acute and sustained alterations in specific areas of cognition, which may reflect changes in the brain affecting our attentional capacities, memory processes, and social interactions. And all this is good research. If there's something sketchy, I'll tell you as we go, right? I might use it, but I'll let you know it's, I don't know, I'm not so sure. But this is very good research. Okay, another distraction. We were talking about that a little bit, you were, Sue. Meetings. So, over the past decade, time spent in meetings has increased annually by 8 to 10%. 83% of employees spend up to a third of their week in meetings, and 47% complain that the meetings were a complete waste of time. So, we've all seen calendars like this, right? Just chock full of stuff. And some people have them like week after week after week after week. And how does this happen? One of the reasons it happens is because the hurdle to set up a meeting is so low. You just go in Outlook, you see 2 hours on somebody's schedule, and you say, hey, they're not doing anything. Boom, right? I'm putting a meeting in. Now, unfortunately, Melody's not around, because in the past, Melody would have stepped in and said, why is it that you want to have this meeting? Because yeah, our team's all working on this thing. Well, that's what our Melodies did. So we continue to have these, and something about this person that I can absolutely 150% guarantee, they are not getting any deep work done. They're not getting any focused work done. It is impossible. And to the extent that they are, they're probably doing it at home in the evening. So if you have people on your teams that have schedules that look like this, as a leader, you need to step in. Because I guarantee you, whatever their main job is, if it's programming or whatever, they can get it done during the day. It just ain't happening. Everybody has somebody like this, right? My job is meeting, and he wants to make meeting your job too, and he's always a really nice guy, right? Email, the assignment generator. Why do I call it the assignment generator? Because it is so easy. You can give somebody work without a feedback loop at all. It goes like this, right? You come in Monday morning, you have a week laid out before you get an email. Hey, I really need this thing by Friday, you gotta fill this out, blah, 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 blah. And you know what, I really need it by Thursday, so I can make sure you don't write anything that's gonna make me look bad. Yeah, thanks, let me know if there's any problems by. Okay. In a world where justice, okay. I sound like the movie trailer guy. In a world where justice, I mean, you should be able to say piss off, right? Right? But then you always have the nice ones, right? The nice ones are like, hi, I know you're really busy, but I really need to have this thing done by Friday, if you don't mind. And I kind of need it Thursday so we can review it, ask questions. Sorry about it. Thank you, TIA. Have a nice day. Double piss off. I mean, think about, what's the rational answer here? We all have a boss, right? I mean, the rational answer should be, let me check with my boss and see what he or she says, right? Better yet, that's putting the onus on yourself. The gold medal answer is here, why don't you check with my boss and see what he or she says? And if she says, hey, I'm willing to give up the deadline that this person has this week, then I'm willing to do your request. When it comes to distracting behaviors embraced in the workplace, we must give a position of dominance to the now ubiquitous culture of connectivity. That means you're expected to be on all the time. You're expected to be answering emails all the time. You're expected to be answering chats all the time. The average worker in an office gets 32 emails per day. And if that sounds low, that's because you're all in leadership positions, right? Right? If you're in leader position, or God help you, if you control a budget, you're going to be getting way more emails than this per day. But we're going to go with a low number, just be conservative, because I don't need a higher number, as you'll see here in a minute. Then there's the chats, right? And sometimes they're important, but a lot of times there's stuff like this. What would you rather fight, a kangaroo or a honey badger? This actually happened in our department, and I actually started it innocently, right? Everybody's like, kind of some bad things happen, so we're like, everybody's kind of a bad mood. So I said, oh my God, chaos ensued. We wound up with Team Honey Badger, there was Team Kangaroo, people were showing pictures of guys fighting kangaroos. I mean, it got to the point where finally, I had somebody produce a piece of research that said this is what actually would happen. And in case you're curious, I'll provide that in the post-meeting materials for Doug to send out, because it's actually kind of cool.
Ours was as a hot dog a sandwich.
What's that?
As a hot dog a sandwich.
Oh my God, yes. Yes.
It was a big argument. It still is.
Cake or pie?
That could go on. Okay, so the average worker gets 21 chat messages per day. Are you keeping track?
From one person?
The average worker gets, you're right, exactly. Right, exactly. Yeah, that sounds low, right? But this is the research I found, and I think it's low too, but as you'll see in a minute, I don't need the big numbers, right? Now, the favorite distractor of all. I don't know whose phone this is, but I'm using it. This person. Everybody in this room has at least one partner in their life. Probably a lot of you have two partners. If you're married, you have a significant relationship of any kind, then you have two partners. If you have three partners, probably want to keep that on the down low. But you're in a relationship with this thing, whether you want to admit it or not. And the only question is, who's in charge? Spoiler alert, it's not you. Right? If you wanted to invent a device that could rewire our minds, create a society of people who are distracted, isolated, overtired, who want to weaken our memories, damage our capacity for focus, deep thought, reduce empathy, encourage self-absorption, and redraw the lines of social etiquette, you'd likely wind up with a smartphone. I'm like, reduce empathy? Hey, I'll take a truckload of them, right? Come on. 57% of Americans admit that they are addicted to their smartphones. I showed this to a coworker, and she said, yeah, the other 43% are lying. How many of you have had this, right? Okay, you have this panic, where's my phone? It's not that you need it right at that moment. You're not expecting a call. It's just like, where is it? That's an addiction behavior. That's exactly what that is. Okay, speaking of social interaction, okay, this picture's kind of cute, right? You could tell they're besties, right? They're hanging out together, but they're not talking to each other, right? They're talking to their phones.
Maybe they are.
Yeah. I looked really closely at the screen. I'm pretty sure she wasn't. But you're absolutely right. That does happen, right? Here's two teenage boys. We probably don't want to know what they're doing because, well, teenage boys. And then there's this idiot, right? At a motorcycle, no less. The average phone pickups per day range from 45 to 300. It's hard to get data on this, right, because it's survey data, right? So I took the lower number of 45. The average Gen Z phone pickups per day is 74 to like infinity, right? There's like nobody's like, I couldn't find a higher number, right? So, and 55% of these are at work. So if you've been paying attention to all the numbers, that's 24. We've got something like this, and thank you ChatGPT for putting this chart together, so I didn't have to. So we have the 32 emails, add the 21 chats that we talked about, we have 53. And then add the 24 phone pickups, we now have 77 distractions during the workday. So it takes 23 minutes and 15 seconds to regain full focus after a distraction. That's the cost of 30 seconds to somebody looking at their phone, right? And if you want to look into this a little more, she is all over the place. Gloria Bark, University of California at Irvine. So now we're going to do a little more math. 77 times 23 minutes equals 1,771 minutes, divided by 60 equals 29 hours. You say, whoa, wait a minute, this math ain't mathing. It's not mathing, but it makes sense, and we'll get there in a second. But before we get there, let's talk about the intentional distractor, which is social media. So, people look at their social media 15 times a day. 55% of these are at work. We're not going to add to the 77 because I'm assuming this is part of the phone pickup, so we want to be conservative here. However, that sounded really, really low to me. 15 times in social media a day. So I went to some of my Gen Z friends, and I said, "Does this seem low to you?" And so just to kind of put all their answers into one summary, the answer was, whoever gave you that number is delusional. It's more like 15 times an hour, right? And you've seen it if you think about it. Go into a convenience store, someplace where there's somebody kind of bored working behind the counter, or they're, yeah, can I get you? What can I get you? Yeah, okay, right? It's constant, and you see it at work too.
Now they're at home, we don't see it.
Right. You don't see it, but nevertheless, it's happening. I mean, if you could see like all the TikToks and Instagram reels and all that stuff flying around your office, I think it would probably be amazing. And the good thing is, most of them are about work. Right? They're like making fun of something that's going on at work. So, we know that that's delusional. We know that people look at their cell phones way more than that. So what's going on here? Right? How can we be saying this? Right? How can any work get done? Well, the answer is, it's just not very deep work. Right? If you look at somebody, they're doing this. They're working, right? But they're never getting into any kind of deep state of work. So one of the things you ask yourself is maybe just we're becoming really good at task switching. Is that what's happening here? Well, nah, the data says, and look at this study, everybody and their mother signed on to this one, right? People that switch a lot perform worse in various cognitive tasks. I don't know. Are you signing up for that? Do you want your children signing up for that? Because that's what the data and the research is saying. So if you look at the websites, right, of these like social media organizations, right, they always say the same thing. It's like blah, blah, something, something community, right? And they're always, the first part is, we're promising something. We're giving you something, right? And oh, by the way, we want to start a community. So as Kara Swisher, in her excellent book called Burn Book, and it's called Burn for a reason, nothing pulls a community together faster than hating on another community. So how many have heard this term, right? Enragement equals engagement, right? So the algorithms that are being delivered here are intended to obviously entice you to stay on the platform. Hey, they don't want you to task switch. They want you to stay right there all day, right? Because you're the product. And if they can get you angry, they know that you're going to stay engaged. Now, some people will say, well, you know, we used to be on the phone all the time. Well, how's that different? Right? We'd be on the phone, throwing people under the bus, hating on a stupid kid in class we don't like or whatever. The difference is there were a bunch of engineers that understood the way your brain worked, that understood the way your reward pathworks worked, that were trying to deliver dopamine hits to you constantly, because that's what's going on. Right? It's like, I'm doing a little work, dopamine hit, doing a little work, dopamine hit. It doesn't matter if you're mad, it doesn't matter if it's a bad hit, right? It's still dopamine hit, boom, 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 boom. And dopamine is at the center of every type of addiction, right? It's dopamine hits out of control is the very definition of addiction. Gets a little worse because 89% of Americans say they check their phone, right, within 10 minutes of waking up. You know, and it's not like, oh yeah, there's my phone, very good. No, it's like they're reading their news feeds, right? They're reading their social media, right? They're doom scrolling, looking for something to piss them off or whatever. Right? That's what doom scrolling is, right? And so now what happens, right? People come into the office and they're already AOA, angry on arrival, right? They've got something they're upset about, or they're distracted, or hey, I'm going to finish it, right? I'm going to finish this after I get in the office, and I'm going to tell that guy what I think. And not only are they doing it first thing in the morning, but remember, they're checking social media constantly during the day. So what do you think that does to the employee survey, right? You've got somebody who's kind of in a bad mood to begin with, right? And they've heard about they're reading about toxic bosses, toxic workplaces, right? Whatever. Guarantee they're going to find something that exists in your organization. They're going to be pissed about it, and now they're filling out the survey. So how in the world is any work getting done? I mean, nobody's doing any deep work. So, I mean, basically what's going on is you are paying for butts in seats, and you're getting butts in seats, but you're not getting the whole brainstem that goes along with it. People are not doing their best work, and the people that are doing their best work, they're probably having to do it either A, outside of hours, or they're the person that pisses everybody off because this person never answers my emails, or this person never answers my chat message. It just takes forever to respond. Well, maybe the person is trying to get his work done or her work done. So what are the next steps here? First of all, lead. We're all leaders, right? None of this stuff is like locked in, right? Nobody made the decision, a while back said we're going to expose our entire organization to the internet, right? Nobody made the decision that a while back that said, hey, we're never going to regulate social media, right? As leaders in the tech space, we can influence. How? Let's talk about policy. Just kidding. Let's not talk about policy. Because policy is going to do nothing, right? If you tell somebody who's addicted to something, well, from now on, you're not allowed to do that. How's that going to work? It doesn't work, right? You have to convince them that it's a bad idea. So here's 3 actions that you can take today as leaders to get this started. 1, turn off notifications every single place that you don't need them. 2, remove social media from your phone. Hey, I did it about 7 months ago. Nobody died. Right? I can still check my Facebook. Right? When I get home in the evening on my laptop, it's no big deal. I can still get to stuff. And then, run your phone in do not disturb mode. Right? So you have people that are important to you, your team members, your significant other, your children, whatever. Put them in bypass mode. They'll always be able to get through. But silence the phone to anything else. Somebody really needs you, they'll leave a message. Right? And you're going to check that message at a particular time of day, and we'll talk about that in a second. Look at your Outlook settings. You can set all your meetings to start either late or to start late or end early. So basically a 30-minute meeting becomes a 25. An hour meeting becomes a 50. And what that does is that gives people on either end of that meeting that you set up to feel like human beings. Hey, I've got 5 minutes to stop to use the restroom, or to get a cup of coffee or whatever, because they're doing it anyway, right? What's happening is people are late to meetings because they're going to use the restroom whether you like it or not. And then practice asynchronous communication, right? That's when you're going to check your phone to see, did I get any messages? Did I have any important texts that I missed? I'm going to check my email at a certain time of day. So you're going to batch your communications. Set aside certain times a day this is when I'm going to check my email because it's a good time to check my email. I'll get that knocked off, and then the rest of the time I'll be doing something else that's important to me. Put time to work on tasks on your calendar, and I mean early. So if you got something coming up in July, you know that now. You know that it's going to be like Bongo Fury for 2 weeks in July. Put that on your calendar now, right, in October, and get that booked out there. And make it a purposeful task. That way, if somebody comes up to you like the end of June and says, I'm looking for time on your calendar, looks like you blocked the next 2 weeks. Say, well, actually, I've been blocked the last 6 months. What is it that you need that you didn't plan for? And we can talk about that later.
So
Yes, ma'am.
really, seriously, people
Yeah.
ask, because people don't ask me. I can be double, triple booked and they still put another meeting on my calendar.
Yeah.
So is this just our organization or is this
No,
every people are these
I've
days?
started rejecting them.
Yeah, I think
decline.
it happens everywhere. You've got people that will check, and you've got people that just don't care. I'm going to book over it. Now, sometimes it happens, like if it's a corporate-wide meeting. I mean, you're not going to check everybody's calendar, right? So you put it out there, but and then everybody panics. Oh my God, I'm busy. But 90% of the time, even if it's the CEO, right? The CEO will say, "Well, of course, I knew some people would have conflicts. That's fine, right?" So the answer is, if you block out that time specifically, they do reach out to you and say, you can say, this is something specific I have to work on, right? Why is your thing more important? Block time for deep focused work, and by that I don't mean like just randomly block out blocks on your calendar. They put a task on your calendar. This is when I'm going to work on this task for 3 hours, and I'm not going to be interrupted. That way, when somebody calls and says, "So what do you do at that time?" Right? You'll like, well, I was kind of reserving the time. You're already done, right? You want to talk about what you're going to be doing. Take lunch, take walks. That can be hard sometimes. Taking lunch is important for you to reset. Take a walk. Creativity happens when you walk. It's good for the brain. There's lots of science around that. Educate your workforce. That's your job as a leader. And then start talking about email, calendar etiquette, right? As well as chat etiquette. Now, the good thing about these things in blue is that when you do these, people will start noticing. And oh, by the way, that Outlook thing about the meeting, you could do that about meetings starting late and early. You could do that across the organization. If you're the IT leader, you have that power. Now, do you want to just turn it on without talking to people? No, but you can kind of force that into the organization and make that the default. So all of these things people will notice. People will see you setting an example, and that is the essence of leadership. So these are the 10 actions. You can start on them today. You can finish some of them today. And then I want you to rethink everything, right? Just because, somebody on LinkedIn or some seminar you went to or this meeting or whatever, somebody says something like, how come all your workloads are not in the cloud yet? Doesn't mean you have to run out and put all your workloads in the cloud, right? How come you're not doing this? Your job as a leader is to think about what's best for your organization, right? Not necessarily what technology is best. You start thinking first, what are we going to do? What makes sense for the organization? And then you start filtering that stuff. That's all we have there. Anyway, thank you very much for your time. This is actually a full page of references and my bibliography. I'll ask Doug to send that out with the mini materials at the end, and then my contact information. Thank you.
Couple of questions, Glenn. Have you had any success managing up against these sets of ideas? I mean, do you see any change in leadership's thinking in the leadership team?
In some ways, yes.
Okay.
So I have some of the things that we have tried to do is talk to people about, hey, if I had one person that we talked about that was like I don't know how to describe it, but they seemed to think that a full calendar was a good idea. Right?
Yeah.
And I said, no, do you understand you're not letting your team really be effective if their calendars are full? What's their job? Is their job meeting, right? So yes, we have talked about some of these. I continue to push them. So in specifically the late start, early end of meetings, that's something I'm going to work on, but just pushing that out. But all of the things that I said that are in my control up there, for me, I have absolutely done.
We've seen some changes in corporate meetings getting scheduled further and further out. we've seen some benefit on that, just so that it doesn't step on things. Most people in our business are scheduled 3 weeks out in general, so corporate meetings are typically scheduled 4 or 5 weeks out. Go ahead.
I think the early and start, or late start, early end is amazing. I find it so fascinating that we have these meetings and they always end on the minute.
Yeah.
Don't we have something to get done and it gets accomplished or not accomplished right at the ending minute?
Yeah.
You know, set an agenda, get it done, right?
So maybe if it
I
was
love
10
that.
minutes, it would.
Yeah, and it's like that 5 minutes is not going to make or break that meeting. You know, I love that. That's good.
2 great topics, communication skills from a security professional and productivity killing you from an IT leader. A little counterintuitive, but super interesting. Don't forget December 10th is our happy hour. I would really love for you to be there and bring your friends and your coworkers who have been to IT leaders or who have never been to IT leaders. We're taking advantage of the month of December to get to know each other and just enjoy each other's time together. So we look forward to that. I will be emailing as normal on that. And then our next meeting is in February of 2025. Thanks for coming. Have a great day.